Millions of iPhone users tapped "Update now" without thinking twice, and within hours, their phones began freezing, draining, locking them out of their own lives. Apple has now issued a rare, urgent warning about an update you were never supposed to rush into. If you own an iPhone, this story could save you from losing your data, your money, and your peace of mind. Subscribe right now, because what you're about to hear is something Apple users everywhere need to know, before it's too late. At first, it seemed like just another normal day in the endless rhythm of software updates. iPhones around the world buzzed and chimed with the familiar notification: a new iOS update was available. The message looked harmless, almost comforting. Apple had trained its users well over the years. Updates meant better security, smoother performance, and shiny new features that made old phones feel young again. Millions of people did what they had always done. They tapped "Download and install" without hesitation. Some did it while sipping morning coffee. Others did it late at night, phones charging quietly on bedside tables. Nobody expected that this update would become one of the most controversial and damaging in recent memory. Within hours, social media began to shift. At first, the complaints were subtle. A post here, a comment there. Someone mentioned their battery draining unusually fast. Another said their phone felt hot even while sitting idle. A few users reported apps crashing, then reopening, then crashing again. Normally, these kinds of issues followed almost every major update, and Apple fans were used to brushing them off. Give it a day, people said. Apple will fix it. But this time was different. The complaints didn't slow down. They multiplied. By the end of the first day, thousands of users were reporting serious problems. Phones were randomly restarting. Touchscreens were becoming unresponsive. Face ID stopped working for some. Others discovered they could no longer access critical apps like banking, messaging, or work tools. Even more alarming were reports from users who woke up to find their iPhones completely bricked, stuck on the Apple logo, endlessly rebooting, or refusing to turn on at all. For many, their phone wasn't just a device. It was their wallet, their office, their family connection, their entire digital life. And suddenly, it was gone. Apple support lines began to light up. Wait times stretched from minutes to hours. Employees followed scripts, asking users to restart devices, reset settings, or connect to computers. For some, these steps worked. For many others, they didn't. That's when panic set in. People realized they might lose photos they had never backed up, messages from loved ones who had passed away, work files they needed to survive financially. The update wasn't just inconvenient. It was destructive. Behind the scenes, Apple engineers were already scrambling. Internal diagnostics revealed something deeply unsettling. This update, intended to patch security vulnerabilities and introduce performance optimizations, was interacting catastrophically with certain iPhone models and configurations. Older devices were hit hardest, but even newer models weren't immune. In some cases, the update triggered a loop that corrupted system files. In others, it exposed a flaw in how the operating system handled background processes, causing massive battery drain and overheating. Worst of all, there were indications that under specific conditions, user data could become inaccessible, even though it technically still existed on the device. As the reports poured in, Apple faced a dilemma it rarely encounters. Publicly acknowledging the problem too early could spark widespread panic. Staying silent too long could damage trust permanently. For years, Apple had built its reputation on reliability and polish. "It just works" wasn't just a slogan, it was a promise. And now, that promise was cracking. Meanwhile, tech forums exploded with speculation. Some claimed the update was rushed to meet a deadline. Others believed it was a failed attempt to optimize performance for upcoming hardware. Conspiracy theories flourished, suggesting Apple was intentionally slowing older phones again, despite past controversies and lawsuits. While those claims lacked evidence, they gained traction because fear thrives in uncertainty. And Apple's silence, at least initially, left a vacuum. Then came the turning point. Apple quietly pulled the update from its servers. New users could no longer download it. This move, subtle as it was, sent shockwaves through the tech community. Apple almost never does this unless something is seriously wrong. Soon after, a support document appeared on Apple's website, carefully worded but unmistakably urgent. It acknowledged unexpected behavior, affecting a limited number of users, and advised anyone who had not yet updated to wait. For those who already had, Apple recommended specific steps and warned against others. This was the warning that millions needed to hear, but many would miss. Apple explicitly cautioned users not to attempt certain third-party fixes circulating online. No unofficial tools. No forced downgrades using unverified software. No jailbreak-style workarounds. These, Apple warned, could permanently damage devices or lead to irreversible data loss. In other words, trying to fix the problem yourself could make it far worse. Stories from affected users grew more heartbreaking by the day. A freelance designer lost access to client files days before a major deadline. A small business owner couldn't access payment apps during the busiest week of the month. Parents lost years of photos and videos of their children. One user described how their phone failed while they were traveling, leaving them without boarding passes, maps, or contact information in a foreign country. These weren't edge cases. They were real lives disrupted by a single tap. Security experts added another layer of concern. While Apple rushed to clarify that there was no evidence of active exploitation, the chaos created opportunities for scammers. Fake, repair tools, and emergency patches flooded the internet. Phishing emails pretending to be from Apple urged users to click links and enter Apple ID credentials to restore devices. Some users, desperate and afraid, fell for it. The update wasn't just breaking phones, it was opening the door to fraud. As days passed, Apple released an emergency follow-up update. This one was smaller, quieter, and framed as a stability improvement. But by then, the damage was done. Trust had been shaken. Users who had always updated immediately began hesitating. Tech influencers who once praised Apple's seamless ecosystem started advising caution. Wait a week, they said. Let others test it first. That advice, once considered paranoid, now sounded wise. What made this situation especially troubling was how ordinary it felt at the start. There was no dramatic warning, no red alert. Just a familiar notification and a sense of routine. And that's the real lesson hidden inside this story. The most dangerous mistakes often come from habits we stop questioning. Automatic updates, blind trust, and the assumption that big companies can't make big errors, all of these collided in a perfect storm. Apple eventually issued a more direct statement. It apologized. It acknowledged the disruption. It promised improvements to testing and rollout procedures. For some users, devices were repaired or replaced. For others, data was partially recovered. But not everyone was made whole. Some losses were permanent, and no amount of apology can replace memories that existed only on a single device. The warning that emerged from this incident is now clear, even if it was learned the hard way. Not every update should be installed immediately. Not every notification deserves instant action. Sometimes, the smartest move is to wait, to watch, to let early adopters uncover problems before you risk your own digital life. Apple itself, in rare moments of candor, now advises caution under certain circumstances. That alone should tell you how serious this was. This story isn't about hating Apple. It's about understanding that even the most polished systems are built by humans, and humans make mistakes. Technology moves fast, and the pressure to innovate can sometimes outpace the safeguards meant to protect users. When millions of devices are involved, even a small flaw can become a global crisis. Today, many users have changed how they interact with updates. Auto-update settings have been turned off. Backups are taken more seriously. People read release notes instead of ignoring them. These may seem like small changes, but they represent a shift in awareness. A recognition that convenience should never replace caution. And yet, there are still millions of iPhones out there, buzzing softly with update notifications, waiting for the next tap. The next decision. The next moment where trust meets risk. The question is no longer whether Apple will release another problematic update someday. History suggests that eventually, it will. The real question is whether users will remember this moment when it happens again. Because this wasn't just an update gone wrong. It was a reminder that our lives are increasingly stored inside fragile systems. That a single action can ripple outward in ways we don't expect. And that sometimes, the update you're told you must install is the very one you should avoid, at least until the dust settles. If you're watching this story now, you have something millions of others didn't have at the time: hindsight. You have the chance to pause, to think, to protect yourself, and that might be the most valuable feature of all. If this story opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with every iPhone user you know, and help others avoid making a costly mistake. Subscribe to the channel right now for more critical tech warnings, real stories, and updates that actually protect you, not just your device, but your digital life. Stay informed, stay cautious, and stay one step ahead.